What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Big Five Pod, episode number 73. I am, of course, your co-host, Kyle Morello, and next to me, the one and only Jake Copestick. Cope, how are we doing?
We're good. We're good. Hop back into work today. Long weekend of college hoops. A lot of good stuff. That calendar's about to hit February, Kyle.
Oh,
Shit
yeah.
is about to get real.
Oh, yeah.
So, really good weekend of basketball. A ton of very, very good games. A couple more upsets. Not a great week in the not a great weekend. Sorry, in the Big Five, but there's nothing like just like sitting at home on a Saturday. I almost went to Drexel, A&T, but then I was like, you know what? I'd rather just sit at home on my couch and have a couple different screens going and just hang out and watch hoops the whole day. A really good weekend of college hoops. Only a couple more Saturday slates left. There's a huge one coming this Saturday, but
Oh my God.
good, good weekend of hoops. Duke, UNC, Houston, Kansas, Kentucky, Tennessee.
Yep. And
Great
then
weekend of
Purdue,
college hoops.
Wisconsin on Sunday.
Yeah, great weekend of hoops coming up for sure.
Yeah, and you know what? It's the absolute perfect time for this kind of weekend because it's the weekend in between the conference championships and the Super Bowl. It's the Pro Bowl weekend. Nobody watches the Pro Bowl. There's not even a game anymore. It's just playing dodgeball and flag football and whatnot. So perfect weekend for this to happen too. All eyes are going to be in the college basketball world. Very, very, very excited for that. And it was a jam-packed weekend this weekend, Cope, but unfortunately, like you said, not a great weekend for the Big Five. But we're gonna get right into it right now. You've got no quick hitters. I'm sure you got your ball near you, but I know you have no quick hitters for you today. But you always got that thing on you. You always got that thing. So listen, why don't we get right into it, Cope? We're gonna start with Friday. We had St. Joe's traveling up St. Bonaventure, a game that we both thought would be tough, but Joe's could pull out in the end. Um, Long story short, they did not. This game was close at one point, a little bit into the second half. And then Bonnie's got hot. They shot 58% from the field for the game. First of all, they won 91-72, for those of you who did not know. They shot 58% from the field for the game, 12 of 27 from three, which was 44.4%. Daryl Banks III was on fire, had 29 points, 9 of 13 from the field, 7 of 11 from three. Didn't have a 20-point game in the season until this one, until he faced this Hawks three-point defense, which we will get into, I'm sure. Moses Flowers, 23 points, Chad Benning, 21 points for the Bonnies. It was a rough game for Joe's, 15 turnovers, and the Bonnies had 29 points off of those turnovers, which is not good. Some St. Joe's notes, Brown had 16 points, 4 of 10 from three. Kreese had 14 points and 7 boards, and Fleming, Greer, and Reynolds all had 12 each. Listen, this game was close at one point. I forget exactly what it was. I want to say it was 58-56 Bonnies at one point. And then they just went on an absolute insane run in the last 10 to 12 minutes of this game. Uh, Cope, I know you were watching. What was your takeaway from this one? Because it did not look good for the Hawks.
No, not at all. And look, you got to give the Bonnies credit because they were making everything. Daryl Banks had far and away his best game this season. Last year, when he really had to be the guy for this team, like he was, I think he had a 30, 35, was it 36 something? He had a big game against LaSalle or St. Joe's or somebody up there at the Riley Center. But it's a really tough place to play, especially when they have all the students on campus at the Friday A10 game. St. Joe's hasn't had a lot of success in Olean up at the Riley Center, but the Bonnies were just on fire. And whether it was man, St. Joe's played some zone in the second half, nothing was working. They were making everything. Saw Kreese lunge at a shooter for one possession, and Moses Flowers just kind of sidestepped Kreese there as he jumped at him and just kind of sidestepped and hit a three. And then, even if Kreese, I would say, oh, well, stay down, run him off the line. And in that case, if he blows by him, that'll just create problems of his own. So nothing you can really do here against a team that's just making everything. They didn't really help themselves with some of with defense and the open shots they were giving up. But the thing is, like, St. Joe's, they still put up 72. They did not shoot bad at all in this one. They just gave up a 58% shooting from the field for the Bonnies, and they were 12 of 27 from three. And then you look at the fouls, there was 10 fouls in the team, foul. Or no, excuse me, there's 10 foul shots taken in this game. Like they let them play. It was just up and down playing. There wasn't a lot of stoppages, and St. Joe's just wasn't able to score outscore the Bonnies. Like their offense is explosive, but they're going to have to be better defensively if they're going to win because they're not going to score 90 points many times. As good as they are, Kyle, they're not going to score 90 points many times. No one really can in college. Really unprecedented. So the defense just has to be better. They just gave up too much. I have a Bonaventure for the first time in I think 7 years. They said I think it was the last time with that Matt Mobley, Courtney Stockard team when they made the first four and they beat UCLA that had Aaron Holiday and Steve Alford. That was the last time they had 3 20-point scores. Moses Flowers, 23, Chad Benning, 10 to 13, 21 points inside for the big fella. And what's even more impressive about this is Charles Pride, who starts for them, who starts for the Bonnies, who came over from Bryant, who was a prolific scorer over there. He didn't even score a point. And he still scored 91. Just a terrific offensive day. The Bonnies needed it after they played Duquesne and scored 50 and were just throwing bricks up in their last game. They were 2-4 in conference play. Bonaventure really needed this one at home. Big time bounce back spot for them. They're a way better team than their conference record embodies. They have a terrific coach, Mark Schmidt, who I would put his X's and O's up with just about anybody in the country. So big time bounce back spot here for the Bonnies. Tough place to play. Team that needed to make some shots. St. Joe's, I guess, kind of ran into a bad situation as far as the team to play. But yeah, to give up 91, have a team almost shoot 60% from the field. Yeah, the defense, plain and simple, even for a team that didn't shoot that bad at all, and I believe they shot in the 40% from three, like in the 40s from three. Like they had a good shooting game defensively. To give up 91 though, I mean that's where they have to be better. It's going to be on that. And the defense for Joe's, they're going to go as far as that defense takes them, and the shooting. Like we know the shooting is going to come and go. We know that offense can be explosive. You can control the defense though. Can't control if the shots go in. If they can be consistent defensively every night, that's how they're going to win. When the shots aren't falling, you need something to kind of fall back on here, and that defense just has to be a lot better.
Yeah, that's the bottom line. You said it perfectly. You know, this team can make shots. Obviously, a lot of their wins and losses will come down to their shot making, but they also have to stop their opponents from making shots. And especially in this game, they did not do that. Plain and simple, the effort just wasn't good enough defensively. And there's nothing else to really say about it. I mean, like you said, they scored 72 points. That's a decent amount for a college basketball game. They just let up 91, which is a lot for a college basketball game. So hopefully they can bounce back in the next game, which I think we'll go over later. Definitely a spot for Bonaventure. It was a good win for them to bounce back. I know they've been struggling as of late. All right, and we will continue now on to Saturday, where we had some interesting games here. Columbia beating Penn up at Columbia, 84-81. This was a pretty close game. I was trying to watch this while on the Long Island Railroad going into the city. Actually, I was up on Long Island this weekend, so unfortunately, the stream got delayed once we got into the tunnel and into Penn Station. So I cannot tell you a ton about this game because of that, but I can tell you who did well, who did not did well, who didn't do well, excuse me. Tyler Perkins was one of the people that did well. 25 points, 7 of 18 from the field, 3 of 9 from three, also adding in 8 rebounds. Sam Brown, 13 points, 3 of 12 from the field, so not as efficient, but still needed his scoring. And Nick Spinoso, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 8 of 12 from the field. Listen, I'll tell you, anything like you can say what you want about this Penn team, but Nick Spinoso is going to show up every game, which is definitely a welcome contribution from him. And then Holland III off the bench, Eddie Holland III, 15 points on 5 of 8 from the field. But unfortunately, Columbia shot 55.8% from the field, 48% from three. So another team that scored enough, but unfortunately did not defend well enough in this one. So now Penn drops to 1-3 in the Ivy League play. Cope, it's not a great start to Ivy League play for the Quakers. I know they're without Clark Slackard still, as we mentioned every episode. His importance to this team cannot be understated. But what do you make of this one?
Yeah, it was tough defensively. They didn't do enough, and it's just a shame because they themselves shot nearly 44% from the field. Got a really good contribution from Ed Holland off the bench with 15 points, and that's what they're going to need. With the youth on this team, and they did make a shift in the starting lineup here. They put in Reese McMullen, who'd been playing well, and they moved George Smith to the bench, who fortunately did not score in 16 minutes. And especially with those vets, like they're going to need the guys that have been here to step up. It's going to be a team effort, and they're going to need multiple guys. It's not. This isn't going to hinge on one guy. Even with Tyler Perkins having the game that he had, they're going to need a lot of people to chip in scoring. This isn't like when you have Clark Slackert out there and him and Spinoza. You can kind of, that they're going to show up. They got to have contributions from a lot of different places. Polanowski up the bench, he had 2 threes, which is nice to see. But problem here is they out rebounded Columbia the way they did. They just let them shoot 55, nearly 56% from the field. Too many open shots here from 3, especially 13 to 27 for Columbia. Just not going to get it done. And they out rebounded 37 to 24. Kyle, they had 20 offensive rebounds. And that's what kept them in it. That's what kept them in it here. And they even gave themselves a chance to win at the end. Columbia had some missed free throws, and Penn was able to get some buckets down the stretch. But Sam Brown kind of fumbled the ball a little bit at the end coming up the court, and they couldn't even get a shot off, and there was a turnover at the end. So they put themselves in position. They were close here, but for Columbia to get this win, it was their first Ivy League win of the season. First win over Penn since 2017 when Mike Smith was the point guard. Mike Smith was the starting point guard for Michigan the year that they made the Elite Eight in DeLon Howard's first year, and kind of like the first year back from COVID in the NCAA tournament. This is straight up just a team they should beat. And Columbia's at 10-7. They're better than I think people thought they would be. Jim Engels was definitely on the hot seat as the season started. But he's quietly putting together like a way better year than people thought. I know they didn't have a win in Ivy League play, but to have their record, I don't think anybody expected it. But yeah, they're gonna need more from the vets here. You look at Reese McMullen didn't score in 22 minutes. Liskowski had 5 points. George Smith didn't score. Besides Ed Holland, they need these guys coming off the bench, and whoever's going to fill that Clark Slackert role, they're just going to have to give them some scoring as well. That's just what's going to have to happen. They're going to have to get contributions from a lot of different people to supplement the scoring that they're missing. And if they don't get that, even on a night where they rebounded as well, just didn't score enough points or defend well enough to get this done. And, it's only going to get tougher. They're going to have to go up to – they have the Brown-Yale road trip this weekend, I believe. Yes. Brown on Friday, Yale on Saturday. So there's 2 good teams they're going to have to go play on the road. And a really good scorer in Keno Lilly Jr. from Brown. And then Yale, who one of the best mid-major programs this year. You bring back a bunch of players and starters from last year's team. So kind of a tough stretch here. They need Clark Slackert back as soon as they can to salvage, not what's left of the season, but, they're 1-3 here. There's kind of a lot. There's 5 teams that are 1-3. So kind of that 4th spot is up for grabs. There's an undefeated Cornell, an undefeated Yale in conference, and a 3-1 Princeton team. They're gonna have to get some wins here. So it's not out of the season is not over by any means yet. But Kyle, they got some tough games coming up. They're gonna have to play Princeton at home coming up soon. They need Clark Slackert back in the work.
Yeah, and that is the bottom line with this Quakers team. They're just missing that extra juice right now that, we've been accustomed to. Obviously, in the past Jordan Dingle, but also with Clark Slackert this season especially. It takes some of the pressure off all the other guys. They know that he's the man. He's the one that's going to score. Even when he's not shooting his best, he's the one that defenses pay the most attention to. So his absence is just absolutely it's killing him, unfortunately. But Cope, how about that Cornell team? Can we talk about them for a sec? Beating Princeton, 4-0 so far in conference play. They are looking really, really good. Yale too, obviously. But Cornell beating Princeton, I don't know if it's a result that I necessarily saw coming. So Ivy League play is definitely shaping up. But like you said, that 4th spot is 100% up for grabs. I don't think any team is really wanting to take it as of right now. I mean, Columbia and Harvard are both 10-7 overall. Um, and then there's Penn at 9-10, and then Dartmouth and Brown at 5-12 and 5-14 respectively. So there's a lot of games left. There's still about 6 weeks left of regular season play, so they can definitely uh, take the reins of that fourth spot. But this weekend's going to be a big one for them for sure. Um, so there's some time left though. So we'll see with them. Um, a team that you want to talk about being in the driver's seat of their conference. How about the Drexel Dragons, Cope? Unfortunately, losing to Towson late in the week last week, so they are not undefeated in conference play anymore. But they are now 7-1 in conference play after beating North Carolina A&T, the game you alluded to earlier in the episode, 62-47. Uh, this was an ugly game. Just to be frank, freshman Shane Blankeny led Drexel with 12 points. They didn't have anyone else in double figures. The Dragons shot 39% from the field, 32% from three. And Cope, NCA&T, 33% from the field, 8.3% from three. They went 1 of 12. Not good. And from the line, too, neither team did well. Drexel 8 of 14, North Carolina A&T 8 of 15. But here's the key, as always with this Drexel team, as we've seen, especially in conference play, they won the rebounding advantage 47-34. So that is obviously an X factor with them in every single game. But now they moved to 7-1 in conference play. And Cope, I don't know if you want to talk about a lot about this game. It was a very ugly one. It was a rock fight. So if you want to talk about this one, definitely you have the floor to do that. But also, I want to put it out there too if you want to talk about the overall conference play and kind of overall trajectory of this season so far for Drexel, because as we talked about, things have been shaping up pretty nicely for them lately.
Yeah, absolutely. And first of all, I just want to don't mean to correct you. They are 8-1 conference play. This
8-1
this win
conference play.
pushes them to the 8-1. And yeah,
Yeah.
kind of similar in a way to the Monmouth game. Not that they had to come back from a deficit in this one, but look, when a night where the shots aren't falling, you win on the glass, you get a result like this. Defense was great. They held the Aggies with NCA&T coach by Monte Ross, who used to be at Temple. When he got let go from the previous regime, he ended up taking this job. So good for him. But yeah, a great defense from Drexel in this one, winning an ugly game. How about this? They had 11 guys, Kyle, play at least 12 minutes in this one. 6 guys off the bench do it. Everybody scored with the exception of the walk-on Dean Lang, and hopefully if there's another blowout soon, he can get a bucket. But everybody scored, pretty much. So they had 11 of the 12 guys who appeared or excuse me, 11 of the 13, no, 12 of the 13. Yeah, like I said, Wine was the only guy that didn't score in this one. They got contributions from everybody up and down the lineup. Look, you have your starters not even playing 20 minutes in this game. That the depth of this team is gonna hurt teams in this conference. Because look at A&T that's only gonna play 8 guys. The depth of this team and getting contributions from a lot of guys is going to give other teams headaches. Having to not only to have to deal with fresh bodies coming in the game all the time, Kyle, but think about how many guys you have the game plan. If a guy like Shane Blakeney, who had his best game as a Dragon as a freshman, if he's going to be able to get some minutes, how hard is it to have to convey a game plan to a team where you have to worry about 12 different guys if it gets to them? So that's what's going to hurt teams, that rebounding, that depth. Hopefully with games like this that maybe are in hand a little bit more, and you can get these guys some playing time. And the only way is up for these guys. They're having a great conference slate here, and not only this guy, they're shooting the ball way better in conference play. And the 2 games where they didn't really shoot, particularly well, this game, the Monmouth game, win on the glass, ended up getting themselves a win. So this is a team they should have beaten, but really good for them finding another way to win, not just with the shots falling. They can play an ugly one and beat you on the glass.
Yeah, and as you said with the Monmouth game, those are the exact formulas when the shots weren't falling. Make sure you get those boards and make sure you put every effort into getting those boards and defending and giving effort for 40 minutes. And that's what they did. Obviously this one, it was a rock fight. Yeah, I mean, there's no other really way to describe it. But like we mentioned with the Monmouth game as well, the important part is that they pulled out the victory and they found a way to win the game. Because, as the season progresses, these games are going to happen and finding a way to win is what separates the good teams from the great teams. So right now they are a great team in conference play, sitting a game and a half up on Charleston. Um, yeah, I mean, can't say much else about the Dragons. They're doing very well right now. So good on them. Cope, I'm gonna save the game I know we want to talk about for the end of the Saturday discussion. We're gonna go to another one first. We're gonna go to a happy game, Cope. La Salle beating George Washington. Let's talk about this one. Ending a 5-game losing streak for the Explorers, beating George Washington 80-70. And they had people scoring in this game, which is something that we had talked about they needed to pick up as a whole. Khalil Brantley, 20 points and 8 rebounds on 9 of 17 from the field. Jameer Brickus, 19 points and 8 assists on 6 of 14. And how about this? They needed a third scorer. Tunde Valberg Fasasi, 19 points, 6 of 8 from the field, 4 of 5 from three. And an adjustment here that Fran Dunphy made, which I think was a needed change to go back to this, and I think you'll agree with me. Rocasio Shoots, 7 and 6 back as a starter. Definitely think that was a welcome change for the Explorers. And they shot the ball well, 49%, 49.2% from the field, 52.6 from three. And Cope, the Explorers needed this one pretty badly. Obviously, that losing streak I just talked about, they were on. This halts that. They're now 2-5 in conference play. They're still over 500 on the year, which is definitely not a bad thing. What do you make of this game against George Washington for the Explorers?
Yes, this is the best win that the Big Five had this weekend. And I know that only two of the six teams won. But yeah, this was the best win of the Big Five for this weekend. Talked about how look, it's not rocket science. You gotta sound dumb as hell. Listen, you gotta score more than your opponent to win. But here's the thing, like La Salle, they
Really?
have trouble doing that. They just do. They have trouble making shots. Again, if it's a Brantley Brickus off night, where else does it come from? This hasn't been there. It hasn't been there like last year when you have Josh Nickelberry who can hit shots. And like the Drame brothers could, get your rebounds, can get off, second chance points. They can shoot a little bit. They can kind of create for themselves. You just don't have that on this team. So having Tunde have his best game of his college tenure thus far was absolutely huge to go 4 or 5 from three. Seems like he's just been getting better and better and better as he's been playing more minutes, as he's now in the starting lineup with Anwar Gill being out. So really welcome sight to see him doing that. And yeah, I do believe that putting Rokas back in the starting lineup is the right move. When you go up against bigger teams here, if you're not going to double the post, Deshaun Shepard, can, him being your best athlete with his length, his athleticism, he can bother some bigger guys, but you just want to make sure you have a true big in there who can even stretch the floor for you a little bit. So, and even though he had 4 fouls in this game, which is, that's the reason why he went to the bench, was to try and get him out of foul trouble. I think this is a move that is probably best for long term right now. Really good shooting game from them, over 50% from three. And if they shoot like that, they're going to be in and they're going to win a lot of these games. It's just, can they make enough shots, and is that defense going to be able to hold on for that long? If that's the case, that offense has struggled through conference play, and that's really the reason that they've lost pretty much all the games this year. That offense can flutter at times. So really, really good win, the best win in the Big Five this weekend. And how about, just in general, you have people hitting the transfer portal. You have NIL money coming out. You have Fran Dunphy, who's going the international route and brings in, Rokas, and brings in Tunde Valberg Basasi. He's kind of zigging while everybody's zagging. It's like you have Fran Dunphy that's like, okay, I don't really need, they tried to get transfers. They just couldn't get any. But he's going that international route. Let me get guys here for 4 years. Let me get team players that know how to play in a system, that know how to play, that know how to pass the ball, facilitate, just play good team basketball. Let me develop these guys for 4 years. And it's starting to pay off a little bit. You're giving these guys playing time. They're coming over to America and having to adjust a little bit to the physicality of playing over here and playing against guys that are going to play in the NBA, playing against really physical competition in a good league like the A10. So like what he's doing. It's a little bit different than what everybody else is doing, but you're seeing a guy like Tunde that, maybe was under the radar a little bit. Not too many people were after him. Fran Dunphy brings him in. And even as a young player getting more playing time, he's just continuing to be on an upward trend here. And he had his best game against a pretty solid team in GW. The Revolutionaries now, Kyle. They're not the Colonials anymore. They
Hmm.
changed over to the Revolutionaries this year, but very, very good win for La Salle. They needed it badly, and I don't think this is a game that a lot of people thought they would win. So kudos to them.
Definitely not. And they absolutely needed this badly. So kudos to them indeed. I'm not going to spend any more time on this one because obviously we had a lot of games to talk about. We still have two more. They were the two most frustrating games of the weekend, and we're going to have to go into previews, of course. So, Cope, without further ado, let's get into these two overtime losses for these two Big Five teams. And of course, we're going to start with Villanova and Butler because we are still on the Saturday slate, and this was the last game to go over here. So let's do this. Of course, Butler came back to beat Villanova in double overtime, 88 to 84. Nova started the game hot on an 11-0 run, and then they were up 17 to 3 through 8:20 in the first half. Butler obviously came back and made it a game, but Nova was up 8 with 2:44 left to play in this game. Um, they obviously ended up losing the lead. They went to overtime and then went to double overtime. And they were letting up some easy baskets. They're letting up some shots that they should not have. Of course, Eric Dixon was phenomenal in this one. In 43 minutes, he had 28 points, 11 of 18 from the field, 4 of 8, excuse me, from three, to go along with 6 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks. Tyler Burton had a nice bounce back game in this one. He's been struggling a bit lately, 13 points and 10 rebounds. Justin Moore, unfortunately, did not have a bounce back game that he kind of needed. 5 points on 2 of 12 from the field, including 5 from three. And Cope, I know we talked about how it's a tough place to play at Hinkle Fieldhouse. We know this. They don't have a great track record there. These two teams are about even in talent, I would say, or at least in how they've performed so far this season. We knew this was going to be a tough one. Obviously, it was in the gauntlet that we've been talking about lately, but this was a game that was in their grasp and they had it, and it was very, very possible for them to come back to Philadelphia on Tuesday with a win in their pocket over Butler and a chance to go finish this stretch 2-3 against Marquette, and then it all fell apart. What happened? Why did it fall apart? And just how big is this loss for the Wildcats?
Yeah, this one hurts because the latest bracketology now has them as the first team out and on the outside looking in, and they haven't suffered a bad loss here. I guess you can consider this Butler one the worst out of the stretch they've had because against obviously UConn, who's going to be the number one overall seed at this point, the way they're just dominating teams at St. John's, and then with Marquette again, like those are three tournament teams, or three quad one losses. Like this isn't a crusher. It's just that they're not like taking advantage of these opportunities to cement themselves as a tournament team. Other teams are passing them. They need to get some wins to stay in this field. And they just couldn't finish. They couldn't finish in regulation. They couldn't finish in the first overtime. And then they lost it in the second overtime and Butler started to pull away here. Oh man, this one hurts. I mean, to start on an 11-0 run, to be up 14 through the first eight minutes and change. Oh, it hurts. They just kind of went cold at the end, and I wanted to see Eric Dixon touch the ball even more. I thought that he should have had the way he was playing. This was a performance. When I was watching this, I was like, he's not going to let them lose. They need this so bad. He's not going to let them lose. I mean, he was spectacular, playing 43 minutes in this game, Kyle. But he didn't have the look at the end of regulation. He didn't have the look at the end of overtime that Justin Moore took, who was 2 for 12 in this game and didn't make it three. And the one, I believe it was the end of overtime, was like almost basically like a half-court heave that Justin Moore had. But I wanted to see the ball in Eric Dixon's hands there. Give it to your hot hand. Give it to your guy who was on fire this game. And then in overtime, and the regulation and overtime, they were so worried about DJ Davis touching the ball that paint was wide open. Guys were just staying too attached to shooters, and especially to DJ Davis, who Kyle had 28 points from halftime on. Finished this game 10 of 20 from the field, all 28 of his points in the second half in both overtime periods. He killed him. But Jamil Telfort and DJ Davis, I mean, they had wide open guys just with the paint being open, guys being attached and so worried about their guys that they They gave up some easy ones without much resistance to keep this game going. They just couldn't finish. I thought they were making good plays. Tyler Burton scored in the first overtime period on a good sideline out of bounds play. Hakeem Hart TJ Bamba made a really big steal and a layup and then nailed a 3-pointer in the first overtime period. Like you always know the effort is going to be there. And they were so close to closing this one out. It just wasn't good enough. Like they played well in so many areas. It was another cold shooting game from three for them. They just couldn't close it out, Kyle. I don't know where this battle for Atlantis team has been that beat three tournament teams. Well, maybe Memphis. Memphis kind of looks like a phony right now with the games they're dropping.
Yeah.
I don't know where that team went because they closed out North Carolina, who's ranked number 3 in the country right now, Kyle. They closed out with Eric Dixon going off against one of the best big men in the country, Armando Bacot. They closed out against the number 3 ranked team in the country. They just couldn't get this done. It's going to haunt them. Going to haunt them because I thought this felt like a game they were going to break the streak. They started out hot. It was a game that they had to have. Eric Dixon, their fifth-year leader, he played terrific. He was knocking down threes. He was scoring inside with his great patience he always has in there. They just couldn't close this one out. Wow. Defensively, when they needed another shot offensively, I mean, to be up 8 points, Kyle, with less than 3 minutes.
I know.
And then to go cold as Butler just kind of scores at will. This one hurts. And they need this game more than ever that we're going to be at tomorrow.
Yes, and we are going to be there tomorrow, which we'll get into in a little bit. But yeah, this is panic alarms. I mean, this is not good. They're gonna have to do some soul searching because they got Marquette coming in on Tuesday, like you said, and if they drop this game, which they are, the odds say that they're probably going to do so, um, it's not going to be good. It's not going to be good. If they win this game, they'll probably be back in a tournament slot or somewhere close to it. But it's been tough sledding for the Wildcats, and I don't know what the answer is. Um, like you said, there's effort there. Unfortunately, there's not enough shot making, which is, something they have to do in the game, and they can't just like that's not an adjustment you can make. It's like, oh, I want to make more shots. Of course, you want to make more shots. It's basketball. You have to make more shots. But yeah, this team definitely has to do some soul searching. And until then, we're gonna just move on and see what they can do against Marquette because there's nothing else we can really say at this point about Villanova. Cope in a very, very similar fashion on Sunday. Temple lost to East Carolina down in Greenville, North Carolina, 70-64. Which, first of all, I do want to give a shout out. Dave Leno was on the call for that one on ESPN2. Dave Leno, of course, is the Union play-by-play radio announcer that I work with a lot. So shout out to Dave, who did a fantastic job, as always. But yeah, that was probably some of the only good things of this game. Similarly, like I said, Cope, Temple was up 8 with 3:18 left to play after a couple Heiser Miller free throws, 57-49 at that point. And of course, they lost this game 70-64. So I'm not going to try to do the math. I believe it's 21-7 from that point on to the end of the game, including overtime, which this game did go to. But it was tough sledding. Jordan Riley did perform well though, 20 points, 8 rebounds, 9 of 20 from the field. Heiser Miller, 16 points, but on 17 shots, Cope only made 5 of them. Not great. Shane Dezonie back from injury, 12 points and 9 rebounds on 3 of 10. And this was also a rock fight, as was similar with the Drexel game. Temple 36.1% from the field, ECU 31.7, Temple 25% from 3, ECU 14. But here's the kicker: Temple with 14 turnovers to East Carolina's 8. Especially down the stretch. It was not pretty. It's a game they had to have. Obviously, this season has not gone to plan, especially in conference play. It finally looked like they were going to have a decent win on the road here, and then it all fell apart in the fourth quarter and in overtime as well. So, Cope, again, we ask, what's good with Temple?
Yeah, this one hurts just like the Nova game because they were up. You mentioned the lead with just over 3 minutes left, and then East Carolina put the press on, and they had a couple bad turnovers. They gave up some points, and they really let the Pirates back into this one with those turnovers at the end. In a game that ends this close, those six turnovers they had that led to those points at the end, that really ends up being the difference, Kyle. But scoring was kind of rough again. I believe last year when they played there, it was like 68-63 or 58-50, something like that. Even
Yeah.
Damian Dunn, I think, got a concussion in this game, had to leave early, but it was a rough, it was a rough game last year. That Texas and I guess Temple going down to East Carolina, it's just hideous and it's ugly. And there's defense and there's a lot of missed shots. Another game played without Steve Settle, which seems like it's hard to get injury news for Temple nowadays. But Steve Settle out. Taj Sweet, should have touched on this probably last episode. He's stepping away from the team. Sounds like it's going to be for a little bit. Not sure what's going on there, but he's not going to be available anymore. So they're down another body. Kyle, here's what I'm going to say. You know what's the most concerning part about this game for me? And Matteo Piccarelli just 2 points in 24 minutes after a season best day, both in points and 3-pointers against South Florida. Sam Hoffman hasn't been shooting the ball great. Was 1 of 5 in this game. He's been in a bit of a slump after we've seen him knock down a bunch of threes, just hasn't been there.
Yeah.
Hysier 5 of 17. But Kyle, here's what the most concerning thing is. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
This to me is like actually like kind of mind-boggling. Jaleel White's Temple's third leading scorer, Kyle. He averages 11.1 points a game. And although the shooting's not there for him, if you can get him in a post-up, if you can get him going downhill with the ball in his hands to use his length and his athleticism to get by guys and finish, that's something you have to do. Him is one of the only holdovers on this team that's up there, one of the vets of this team that's been in college for a while. He's got to score. Kyle, he fouled out of this game in 17 minutes. He did not even attempt a shot. He did not attempt a shot. It's one thing to not score. It's another thing, Kyle, to not even attempt taking a shot. They needed Jaleel White in a game like this. They needed him to just give him something. They just needed him to get, and I get it. Like he's not a 3-point shooting threat at all. Really, not even somebody that you want shooting a ton in the mid range. Like I said, you want him to off the bounce, use his length, use his athleticism to get to the rim. They didn't even take a shot in this game. That's honestly like kind of crazy for your third leading scorer to not even attempt a shot.
And like that's just what's kind of wrong with this Temple team right now. I mean, they don't have people to put the ball in the basket. Hysier Miller can, but he's proven to not be very efficient this year. At a lot of times, now I'm not gonna say every time because that's not accurate, but a lot of times, Jordan Riley stepped up. Like I said to you when we were at the Temple game, he's a hooper. He's a hooper, certifiably so. He's been playing well. But outside of those two, I mean, when Matteo Piccarelli is not hitting his shots and Hysier Miller's not being efficient, I mean, who do they have to go to? They have to rely on Jaleel White, and he's not a natural scorer, and it's unfortunate for them.
Yeah, and with Steve Settle being the injury bug again, even with McKee leaving, it seems that injury bug still hasn't left him, which sucks. But listen, this was not going to happen this year for them.
No.
I mean, it was great that they started 3-0, but it's not going to happen for Temple this year. This is going to be a long-term thing. I'm so confident in Adam Fisher. They were in this one. They were in both of the East Carolina games. They just couldn't close them out or come out with a win. So the expectations are low, unfortunately, for this year. But I'm still confident in this long term, which is the more important thing here. It just sucks. They've lost 6 in a row. It hasn't been particularly pretty. They easily could have won the last 2 games. They've just blown these. So it's unfortunate for Temple. But this is a long term thing here with them. Just this.
Yeah.
So with that being said, like that's where I'm at with it. You can't expect much from them in conference play. This conference, by the way, I think has been a lot better than people thought they would be. Some of these new covers coming in have been very, very good. So with that being said, it's gonna be a rough going conference this year. if it hasn't been apparent already. But you just want to see them get a win. I mean, they've dropped 6 in a row, and there's been some winnable ones in there, but they've kind of been in control here and go through their thing.
Yeah, it has been rough going for them. And this conference, like you said, has been a lot better than people thought. I don't know, before the football games on Sunday, if you were tuned into the North Texas FAU game, that one was
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal. Um, yeah, I mean this conference has been pretty good this year. I think everyone thought FAU was going to kind of run away with it, and while they've been very, very good, they've had a lot of competition. So it's definitely good to see. But Temple has not, unfortunately, been one of those teams. Hopefully, Adam Fisher can get them there in the future, but we're gonna have to see. It's gonna take a little bit. All right, and that is all for the recaps. I know that took a while, but obviously we did have a lot to go over, and some disappointing things to go over, which sometimes do take longer than the successful ones, because it's kind of addressing what's going wrong is sometimes a little harder than praising what's going right. So that is that. All right, game previews now. Cope, we are going to each pick a game like we've been doing. And you know what? I'm going to go first this time because I want to talk about a game. And I'm going to let you talk about a game that I know you're going to want to as well. So, my game of the week is going to be George Mason traveling to Hagen Arena to take on St. Joe's. Listen, these two teams are fairly evenly matched, I would say, and according to Ken Palm as well. George Mason, 98th in Ken Palm, and St. Joe's is 96. A little bit about this George Mason team, 104th in Ken Palm on offense, 96 in defense, so pretty balanced. One thing they do very, very well, they are 10th in the nation in Ken Palm in defensive 2-point percentage. They don't allow a ton on the 2-point from the field, I guess, not including threes. But here's the kicker. They don't get a lot of turnovers. They're 293rd in defensive turnover percentage. And they do allow a decent amount of threes, 260th in defensive 3-point percentage. And as you know, St. Joe's can definitely shoot the lights out from three. They are 36 in the country in 3-point percentage in Ken Palm. Now, one thing that's going against St. Joe's, George Mason's 101st in offensive rebound percentage, whereas they are 215th in defensive rebound percentage, the Hawks. So the boards will be a struggle for them, but Kreese is back, which is definitely, he's been back for a little bit now, but he did miss a good chunk of the early part of the season. So I'm sure that factored into it as well to have him down there on the block. But what it's really going to come down to is St. Joe's ability to shoot from three and George Mason's ability to defend the three. I think George Mason traveling to Hagen Arena will definitely be a challenge for them. And overall, I'm going to go with the Hawks in this one. I think it'll be a close game. I know we say that a lot, but when it gets to conference play, it tends to happen. But I do think St. Joe's comes away with this one. I think they're going to bounce back from the St. Bonaventure loss with a win over George Mason at home. Cope, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it'll be close for sure. Really, really impressed with this George Mason team. They played at La Salle earlier this year, and they went into halftime down 10 and then just dominated the Explorers
Yeah.
from halftime one. Really, really good defensive performance. This team is just completely outperformed their expectations under Tony Skinn in his first year. Uh, However, this game, it could come down to just whose best player scores more. Ready for this? Eric Reynolds, third in the A-10 scoring, 17.9 points per game. How about the UNLV transfer, Keyshawn Hall, for the George Mason Patriots, seventh at just a notch under 17 points a game. So two of the best scorers in this conference going to be on display. I personally like St. Joe's to get a bounce back win here. Really need a win at home. They really need a win over what would be it would be a really good win for them over George Mason here. That's outperformed expectations. It's going to be a feisty team come March. But I'm going to roll with the Hawks here. They need this one, but especially Kyle defensively. Show me something defensively. Let's limit this team in their 3-pointers. Let's defend the line well, and ultimately let's hold them in 40s here in terms of shooting percentage goes. So I think they'll win, but I just want to see an improved defensive performance here. When you really need it the most, you're at home. I want to see a good defensive performance here from the Hawks.
Absolutely. And, they've shown that they're capable of it at times, but they've also shown that they can lapse at times as well. For example, the St. Bonaventure game. So definitely going to need to see a better defensive performance from them, but I do think they are capable of it, and I think they'll be able to adjust in this one against George Mason. All right, Cope, your turn now. Let's hear it. Your game of the week.
Yeah, well, hey, I feel like there's only There's really only one option here. Although St. Joe's Mason is a very very good game. No, I have number 14 in here in the notes because the new AP poll was released this morning. How about the Marquette Golden Eagles, Kyle? You want a good win, Villanova? This team just moved up to number 9. They just moved
Ooh,
into the top 10. The
top
Golden Eagles
10.
did. Last time they played each other, 87-74 win for Marquette on Martin Luther King Day. I was at La Salle St. Joe's and unfortunately wasn't able to catch this one, but good win for Marquette. And here's the thing, Kyle. They're a three-headed monster. You have Tyler Kolek, probably the best point guard in college basketball. 21 points, 11 assists in this game, and just 2 turnovers. Big fella inside, Oso Iguodaro, 18 points. He's, shoots a very high percentage from inside when you have a guy like Tyler Kolek that can dish you the ball. Offensive rebound, great lob threat with the good vertical athlete. He is 9 of 11 from the field, 7 boards, 5 assists, 3 steals, really stuffed the stat sheet. And then they really have a good blend here. You have a big guy who's athletic, can catch lobs from a great point guard who can facilitate. Iguodala's a good passer as well. But then Cam Jones, you have a dynamic lefty scoring guard who's got really limitless range. 10 and 12 from the field, Kyle, he had 22 points in this game. Those are your 3 guys that are going to kill you. They were the only 3 guys on Marquette that scored in double figures in this game. You got to find a way just to take one of them out. Now, it's hard for Tyler Kolek because if you're going to double him, you have one of the best assist guys in the nation that's probably going to be surgical on you and break it down. Oh, someone's got to get in Cam Jones' grill. Someone's got to say, hey, I've got him. I'm going to do my best to take him out of the game. If you just take one of these 3 guys out, if you don't have a David Joplin from Marquette who's going to knock down a bunch of threes, they lost Sean Jones, one of their guards off the bench, and they're just not a very deep team right now. They have some really good players in the starting lineup. Depth-wise, there's not really a ton, like a bunch of bankable and proven scores there. So find a way to take one of these guys out of the game. That's how you're going to win this. 58.7% from the field for the Golden Eagles last time. They certainly can't shoot that. And then you look at turnovers here. Villanova had 12 turnovers to 3 for Marquette with a guy like Tyler Kolek. They're not going to turn the ball over a ton, but Marquette won this game by 13, 15 points off turnovers for them. So if you're not going to be able to force a lot of turnovers for Marquette with Tyler Kolek handling the ball, you have to limit yourself to turnovers and you can't shoot yourself in the foot. So let's try and take one of Kolek, Iguodaro, Cam Jones. A lot easier said than done. If Villanova can take one of those guys out and cut down their turnovers, I think they can get a very, very, very much needed win here. Another thing I want to point out here, since Jordan Longino missed a game with the foot injury that he had, he's kind of been off, as far as his shooting goes. They need his scoring off the bench. So I think there's a bounce back game for Jordan Longino. And defensively, if Villanova wants to win this, they have to be better handling the ball, and they got to play some better defense on this 3-headed monster from Mark. You just got to take one of those guys out of the game. You're not going to shut all 3 of them down. But if you can take one of these guys out, I think they can get a win. Their backs against the wall. This isn't a place where Marquette's had a ton of success, although they did come in and win last year. It's just hard. It's hard for me to take Villanova right now, Kyle, but this team's better. To me, they're better than 11-9. They've shown that. I just don't know where it's been. I'm going to take him in an upset here. I don't know why, because the last couple performances, it hasn't been up to their standards. But I'm going to take them because they need this in the worst way. They now have to fight their way back into the field, fight their way back to, guess what, Kyle? They lose this game. They're 11-10. They're just fighting to keep their head above water. They really need this one. I'm going to take them to get a win here at home. And we'll be there. And you'll be at the Finn for the first time, Kyle.
That's right. That's right. I will be at the Finn for the first time on Tuesday night. Unfortunately, I'm not going to share the same sentiment as you. I am going to take. Oh, look at you! Look at you with the around the head.
Just doing some Maravich drills,
All right. Yeah, I'm going to take Marquette in this one. I hate to do it. I don't want to pick against Big Five teams, but they just have to prove that they can play a full 40 minutes and that they can play their best basketball. They have not done that in quite some time. And obviously you did an extremely good job of going over the 3-headed monster of this Marquette team. This Marquette team is very, very good. One other thing I wanted to point out, you mentioned the turnovers that Marquette caused Villanova last time. Probably because they're sixth in the nation according to Ken Pom in creating turnovers. They're a very, very good team at that. So it's going to be on Nova to take care of the ball, not turn it over a ton, which normally they do a very, very good job of. The last time they faced Marquette was not the case. So if they do want to get the upset win in this one, they're going to take care of the basketball. That's what it comes down to. And of course, stopping at least one of the big three on Marquette, like you mentioned. So I do think it'll be closer probably than a lot of Villanova fans at least are expecting because I think a lot of Villanova fans are a little pessimistic at this point, and I don't blame them. Um, but I'm also going to share their sentiment and not picking Villanova to win this game. I'm going to go with Marquette. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I will be. So I'm going to go with the Golden Eagles in this one. And Cope, that is all for this episode. I know it was a little bit of a long one, but like I said, had a lot to go over. I believe it was the first time all six teams played in probably a few episodes, which is definitely nice to see. So yeah, that's all we got for this one. Cope, any final thoughts here before we sign off?
No, I think I did enough talking. So I'm just excited. Going to go to Villanova tomorrow. Huge matchup. Excited for you to get to the pin for the first time. I think you will share the same sentiment as me that, look, the Palestra's the Palestra, but I think you're going to be wowed by how nice the pin is tomorrow.
I've heard great things about the Finn Cope. I'm very, very excited. I've heard obviously they renovated a few years ago, so it's going to be up to date. But I've heard it's just a nice, intimate venue. It gets loud, as you've told me, and as I've seen videos and on broadcasts and whatnot. But I'm excited to see it in person. Nothing is like seeing things in person. I definitely learned that experience when I saw Wicked this weekend on my first Broadway show. Not that has anything to do with this, but it was very, very good. Those people are extremely talented. Um, and it's just a different environment in person, and I think this will be as well. So I'm very, very excited. That's all I have for this one as well. Uh, so with that being said, make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Big Five Pod, and of course, make sure you listen to our audio only versions on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Cope, I will see you Tuesday night at the Finn. The rest of you, we'll see you later in the week for our next episode. But until then, peace.